Hello everybody and welcome back to the Lokalfeed show. My name is Azura and our guest today is Amanda Blum. Amanda is a humanist, storyteller, writer, to name a few. So one day she decided to leave her job. She packed her bags and she took a chance on the other side of the world to start her own entrepreneurial journey, which is to help others tell their story to the world. So on this episode, we talk about why you should put yourself out there, processes to get through a writer's block or to get in touch with your creative vibes. With so much going on in the world, why you should make use of your time on earth, be awake, take risk. Don't be afraid to use your heart to do things to improve the world in any way that creates positive impact. Before we get to it, if you want to support us, there are a few ways you can do so. Share an episode with your friends. You can subscribe to our Spotify, iTunes, and our YouTube channel. So, without further ado, remember, be bold and stay inspired. Here is Amanda Blum.
Thanks, Amanda, for being here today.
Thanks, Akila.
I really appreciate your presence and how much you want to just impact as many women as possible out there. So I think we'll just get into this. Okay, so you're a storyteller. Mm-hmm. You're also a writer, and at the same time, you're also you're sort of like an activist as well. So you're a humanist, kind of indirectly. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I would like to learn more about you also. So tell us a little bit of your story. Like, what is your story?
That's a big one. I guess I could go into how I got into storytelling and writing. I don't know, it's kind of a disjointed journey, when you look at all the pieces and they line up and somehow you end up where you are. I kind of look back and it kind of happened haphazardly, but I think at a really young age, I decided I wanted to be a writer. I think like when I was 17.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I just, so I think one of the big influences on my life was growing up in London, and then I moved from London to the States.
Okay.
And I didn't have any friends, so I just read books for like a year by myself. That's all I did. That was like my full-time job.
Okay.
And I think going through that process of just connecting with people in books and being able to kind of travel the world in books, I got so much out of it. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to be able to speak to people in this very intimate way, which is through writing.
Okay.
So eventually I decided to study it. So I got a degree in literature and anthropology, which is like the study of humanity.
Okay.
Just wanted to learn more about life. And I guess I've always had the practical side. Like, I wanted to get a good job. I wanted to, get paid well. But there was this other side of my personality that has always been a bit of an artist, like live life and create things out of this one life that we have. And I think for me, that's always been about self-expression.
Yeah.
So I committed myself to writing, and my first job was as a writer in a museum. And from there, I took on different jobs until I could finally decide, okay, I want to commit myself to this and figure out how I can be a writer. And that's when I kind of moved to Singapore and started writing. I started kind of going through this process of like interviewing people, learning their story. I started writing story and I got known for it.
Yeah.
And people started telling me, hey, you're a storyteller. And that was kind of how it happened. I was like dubbed the storyteller, and then I was like, yeah, you're right, I am a storyteller, and I managed to build a business out of it. It kind of happened so cool. Organically.
Wow.
With lots of crazy stuff in between, but that's like the gist of it.
Okay, cool. Now I'm actually interested and curious to know about the crazy stuff in between. Okay, let's go back a little bit. So you said that you were born in London.
Yeah.
And then you moved to the States.
Yeah.
So your parents they work overseas, or how does that happen, like that transition in your early years?
So my mom is Asian, Filipino. My dad is English.
All right.
So my mom moved to England.
Okay.
And got married to my dad, and
Yeah.
we were married for like 25 years.
Yeah.
But eventually they divorced when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And so when they divorced, my mom eventually remarried an American citizen.
Okay.
And then my aunt had lived in America, and then they were just like, "Do you want to move to America?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's do this." You know, I think I jumped on that opportunity. Like I had a lot of friends, and I had strong roots in London, but I just wanted to. I felt it was an easy decision. Like I was like, "Yeah, I want to travel the world. Might as well start while I'm young." Like I was quite clear thinking at a young age.
Okay.
Like wasn't really afraid to do that. So I moved to the States with my mom and my brother,
Okay.
and just started over.
Cool. So you did also mention that you traveled the world through books, like you were reading, and you're sort of like traveling the world. Was that like was that like a huge thing in really, you know, just jumping into the opportunity of like moving at a very young age, and then right now you started a business organically, or I mean, you just started.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that has shaped? In what way does it have? Like, has it shaped?
Definitely. I was just having this conversation with my sister last night on the
Okay.
phone. I was like, I had this moment where I looked back at all the things that have influenced my life in subtle and big ways. And I think like you think university would shape your life. And I think it did. But for me, it was things like music.
Okay.
Influenced me a lot. The type of music I listened to and the type of books I read. Those, I think, completely determined the person I was. Like I used to listen to music that was not a lot of people used to listen to the type of music.
So I was going to ask you, like,
I used to
what kind of music do you listen to?
I used to listen to, when I was young, I was really influenced like by the Doors, which are like a 60s band.
Okay.
And they were kind of like psychedelic, and it was like poetry.
Okay.
And I was really into this idea of mystery and this whole element of life not being what it seems. Like there's this kind of mysterious element to the nature of being alive. So I was quite a philosophical kid.
Okay.
And so I was into people that exhibited artistic characteristics.
Okay.
And then when I got into books, I started, I was really influenced by like the Beat Generation, which is like the 1950s, you know, when there was a lot of suppression. There was like these rebels that went and did what they wanted.
Okay.
And, you know, they traveled around America, and, you know, they were just kind of, I guess they were rebels. And I was just like, I want to be, not a rebel, but I want to be someone that does what they want.
Okay.
And like, I just was like, yeah, that's me. Like, and that's my soul, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so I've always felt like those values and that way of looking at the world has shaped everything I do, including my business.
Cool. That's very interesting. Okay, so I mean, like looking back, for most of us, like, you know, when we're a kid, you know, we don't normally get into like, oh, I'm like, you know, I'm a philosophical kid. So what was your biggest influence? Like, how did you even get started, like picking up this kind of music? I'm sure there is something that's sort of like, like, you know, how did you get there? How did you turn out to be very philosophical? Was there someone or something?
Well, I think my sister was the one that used to listen to this stuff, and I was influenced by her. But I think just as a kid, I was an odd kid. Like I was really sensitive and really kind of observant.
Okay.
And so, and I think because my parents are from different cultures, so my mom's Filipino, and so there's that whole Filipino culture that I was raised in, and you know, they eat with their hands and they speak loudly, and then my dad's side's really English, and I would ask myself, like, how do these two very different cultures come together, you know? And I went to the Philippines when I was 10, and I saw poverty for the first time, and then I'd go back to England, and it's all, you know, material wealth, and I was like, how do these two, why does this happen in our world? So I would ask really big questions, and that was just kind of my nature. Like, and so when these little, I guess when things would happen in school, I'd always have like this alternative, bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just wired that way. And then I found out that I think I used to think I was a bit odd, but over time I realized it's actually just a way of looking at the world. And usually I think people who are kind of creative and into arts tend to kind of view the world the same way you experience the world, and then you find a way to share it with people. And that's kind of why I got into writing and things. It's all about this observing and sharing and experiencing.
Okay. Wow. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. Okay, so you did mention a little bit about at the same time you are very creative. So that's pretty much your right brain
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you also like to observe and analyze, and you
Yes.
have your own methods, which is pretty much, as we know it, like our left brain.
Yes.
So how do you have you like? How do you actually find a midpoint
I'm
of
definitely
this?
very left brain. Like
Are
actually,
you okay?
before I pursued writing, I was pursuing a math degree.
Oh wow!
So yeah, like, yeah. So my yeah,
Wow, okay.
yeah, it's really
What happened to that
random.
math degree?
I think one thing through my journey of self-awareness, I realized I have quite an extreme personality in a way. Like I can be very left brain, and I used to work. One of my first jobs was working in a stem cell research blood cancer charity.
Okay.
So they dealt with like tissue typing, and I dealt with data. I used to analyze
Wow.
data.
Okay.
But then there was this other side of me that was like really into the intangible. So like I could straddle these worlds,
Okay.
and I think that's a big part of what I do as a storyteller. Like I can handle, like I can have a business conversation. I get the numbers, I get the profit, I get the strategy. I'm like da da da. But then how does it tie to a much bigger picture of movements and people and the world? So I think playing with those two things is what I do. Like that's my thing. I realized like. Yeah, so that's how I kind of consolidate it. Like I don't use one or the other. I kind of embrace both.
Yeah. Okay. Was that something you've realized since you're young, or much later?
Much later, I think.
Okay.
Like I think as I got older, I started realizing there's a lot of like these personality profiling things.
Yeah.
You know, like
the Myers.
the Myers, all those
things like that.
I really find those things fascinating. Like
Okay.
just seeing how people get broken down into different types and how we have different innate strengths and weaknesses. So as I got older, I was like, oh, that's my strength. Like I think I didn't know, I wasn't that self-aware when I was younger. I just kind of followed my interests. And as I got older, even like owning the fact that I was a writer had to take a huge amount of self-awareness to realize like this is how my brain works and it's natural, so I should do it.
Okay.
Whereas for a long time, I tried to find all these other jobs.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I should be doing that because it's practical. Like I had to kind of really figure out who I was and what I was good at.
Okay.
So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. What? So curious. So what's your Myers-Briggs personality?
I'm
To the world.
I'm an ENFP.
Nice. Okay. So that's
You know
sort of.
yours.
I am actually ENFP too.
Oh yeah!
Yeah. High five.
Yeah, that's probably why we're having this conversation.
I know.
Right?
No, that's really cool. Okay, so now that we know that your background a little bit, okay, so you pretty much, you like the data analytics in the same at the same time you still do the creative side as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your business and what you do today to impact or help others and things like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, so I guess the first thing is I never ever thought of myself as an entrepreneur. Like, I see what I'm doing, I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing, like I'm kind of amazed that people like me, and in fact, what I realized, anyone can run a business. Like I used to think it was only for a certain type of person.
Okay.
Like a certain type of risk taker or a certain type of person that had a good business model in mind. But for me, how it kind of evolved was I had this desire to tell stories, not even tell stories, I had a desire to connect with people. So when I first moved to Singapore, I would go to networking events and I'd meet like a lawyer or a financial advisor, and I don't want to be like, you're a lawyer, you're a financial advisor. I want to be like, tell me about you as a person, like, tell me about your life, I want to know about you. And so I started writing their stories and I'd post them online and people would read them, they were quite well read. And then people came up to me and said, will you write my story? Since you wrote that, I completely talk about what I do differently. And I was like, there's something to this, then I realized that storytelling is one of the big things, like it's supposed to be one of the top 5 skills that people in business need to learn. I was like, oh, this is a thing? Like I didn't realize it was a business thing. I just do it because I'm passionate about it. And I also realized from my past as working in a museum, my first job was writing stories about Martin Luther King's civil rights movement, and I used to interview all the civil rights leaders, and I would tell their stories and I would see the impact that it would make in the world. Like if you tell a story, people can learn things, they can look at the world differently, and actually that's exactly what businesses need to do. But most of the time, I think, one of my beliefs is that we get so stuck in, this is how we make profit, this is my sales pitch, that all the human stuff, all the stuff we deeply connect to, disappears because nobody can talk human anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, screw that. I want to tell really cool stories, but also be strategic about it where people are meeting their business objectives.
Okay.
So what I do in my business now is I help people tell the story of who they are, do the work that truly is aligned with who they are. So not bringing all that weird quirkiness, all these things that you have no idea how they fit into your work, getting people to see how that fits in, and then build a brand and market what they do in a way that is completely tapping into their natural storytelling abilities. Okay. So that I guess the way I like to put it is helping people do their truest work and show up.
Okay.
Because I think showing up is probably the hardest part of telling a story. Like, how do you be your total self and know that that's enough, but not just enough, but that's what's going to resonate with people.
Okay. So you actually help. All right. So that's really cool because, you know, for most, I've got a lot of questions for you. But okay, wait, hang on. Let's first things first. Okay,
Yeah.
Why Singapore? So it's very interesting because the landscape in Singapore in terms of business as well is that people are just a little bit more probably closed up as well. Like they don't normally share stories openly. Yeah. Perhaps you can share, enlighten us in this sense as well because you've lived pretty much you grew up in London and then you grew up in the States, you know. Yeah. People are, if we've traveled the world, people are a little bit more outspoken as well. Yeah. So do you feel like this is a challenge in the business sense where people don't normally share stories, or
maybe it's an opportunity? Okay. Maybe it's an opportunity because I haven't had any challenges. So I actually run a workshop, a storytelling workshop, and it's a full day, and I invite entrepreneurs to come to learn how to tell their story and how they use that in building their brand and business. And it's so beautiful, and a lot of the people who come are Singaporeans. Yeah. Some are expats, but actually I'd say it's probably mostly Singaporeans. Okay. And once people know how, I think a lot of the time it's giving people permission or a safe environment where people realize that the point is to connect in a human way. And I think also my role in that is because I'm the facilitator, I have to embody that myself. I'm being as real as I possibly can be. I guess my commitment is I'm gonna really be who I am, and I hope and I believe that I'll encourage and attract people that want the same thing. Yeah. So the people that come to my workshops are usually ready to be able to discover their authentic story, and it's so funny because it's so moving. It's not like a business workshop. There's always tears. I always cry because somebody tells me this most amazing thing, something personal, or it gets deep, or it gets very real, and it's really beautiful. And I think that's probably I believe the thing that I'm quite known for is that people go to Amanda's workshop. It's not just branding. It's something else. You should go. You should just go. That's what people always say. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. It's something else because it is about being able to bring that out in people, and I haven't found that it's a challenge yet. I've found that people are amazingly receptive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's amazing that people just really open up, their stories, and then from there so how do you go from there then? So someone tells you their story. Yeah. So how do you actually help these people?
I know, right?
I know, that's
the golden question.
I know, it is. How do you actually help these people use their story?
Yeah.
To really connect with their audience. Yeah. I mean, they can be in different industries, you see. They can be doing a lot of things, maybe in manufacturing, which is really different. Yeah. So how do you do that?
It's magic, man. Okay. It's so cool. So one example, I really get people from all different, I had an engineer, I've had all different industries. But what I realized that it's all the same process. Okay. Because once people are able to articulate why they're doing what they're doing, that becomes the vision and their kind of movement. So for example, one of she became my client, and she also came to the workshop. She was a music teacher, and she taught for 12 years, and she created this curriculum that teaches babies how to learn music by the time they're 2, okay. And by the time they're 5, they're jamming on the piano. But she was saying that she teared up because she's the way I was taught to teach music and the way I was taught was through getting scolded and getting hit by a ruler, and kids are afraid to learn music, and they become traumatized, and they don't do it because they want to, they do it because they're told to. So she wanted to change that. She wanted to create a way where kids can learn through love and play, and a place where they enjoy being there, where they use positive reinforcement. And she also had this desire. She said, I want to be a music missionary. So she goes to like Cambodia to bring music to kids who can't afford it. And like, you could just feel like how much she cared about this. And I was like, that's it. So we created, her whole message was around that, like creating this movement with music.
Yeah.
So we used that to shape her brand and built her business from that, starting from that big why, being able to figure out what her packages are, how to attract the right people to work with her. Then she launched a music school. It's full now. She opened up another music school less than 18 months later. That's probably full now. And all through telling these messages and sharing stories, sub-stories from out. That was like the main why. And now we have thousands of different stories around that, like what's her methodology and, you know, how do the kids respond, and it's all being able to tell these real stories. And because people get it, they get what she's doing, she has like a following, and that's a movement, and it's creating something beautiful in Singapore.
Wow.
And that's just one example. Like I can name a ton of my clients that have done the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, big question.
Yeah.
So why do you do this?
Why do I do it?
Yeah, why? Like, we know why you started it.
Yeah.
So what kind of satisfaction does it bring you, or, you know, why do you know about this?
I believe that we all go through a crazy journey in life. And I believe that each of us have innate skills, talents, passions, things that bother us, things that we want to change. And I also believe that there's a deep integrity in that. And when we connect to that deep integrity, that's when we can be of a genuine service to the world. And so I guess it is kind of like activism. I like that you used that word earlier, although I've never really used it for myself, but I do see it as creating like movements. And before, when I used to work in this museum and I used to write civil rights stories, I only saw like movements as creating revolutions through protesting and stuff. But now I see that you can actually create this impact in business. Like that was kind of a mind-blowing concept to me. Like, oh, you can make a living from this. Like, why not make the thing that you really believe in be the thing that you get up for, and be your job, and be the thing that makes you feel really alive, and then you're touching the lives of other people. Like that excites me. Being able to help people unlock who their truest self excites me. Yeah. Because I think that's so, I think everybody talks about authenticity, but I think it's I think there's so much bullshit, I don't know if I can say that, but I think there's so much in the world. There's so much in business. Yeah. It's so easy to start posturing. It's so easy to become a prisoner of our own like brands. Like I just want to create real stuff in the world. And I think the way I've kind of put it recently is trying to make art out of business. Okay. And then helping people show up along the way and live as alive as possible. Yeah.
Like a real life as much as possible as well, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. So cool. Oh my God. Okay. One sec. Okay. All right. So let's move from the business aspect of things and how you started. Okay. So I'm sure you struggle on a daily basis as a business owner, as a storyteller, as you know, someone with huge dreams, trying to change the world, trying to impact others. Yeah. What are your struggles on a daily basis in your, I guess we can just really say that in your business is one thing, and also in storytelling. Do you have like those kind of like like a writer's block, and especially if you help others as well? Like what kind of struggles you go through on a daily basis?
Okay, I think my wheels are like going. I'm like, okay. I think the biggest one for me is consistency. Okay. Because I'm like really emotional. Like I'm an emotional person, and I go with how I feel with things. Like, and if I don't like something, I'm like, I'm not doing it. You know? Or if I don't feel, it's not good to just be so reactive to emotions. And I realize that's been my thing. Like I'm just like an emotional person. So I've had to kind of learn to manage my emotions or wait until they pass before I make decisions. And then consistency is a problem because I don't like doing things for the sake of doing them. Like I don't like content calendars because and having to push out content because you have to push it out.
Like
Yeah.
that's where my arty snobby side comes in. I want to do it because it's art, but that's not practical. That's not business sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I know what I'm supposed to do, and I know that if I did it probably more often, I would probably do better.
Okay.
But because I'm a little bit not so great with structure,
Okay.
that kind of catches me. But because I know that about myself, I've put in certain things in place that would work for me. So I have a daily writing practice, for example, so that I'm always putting stuff out. And I have a rule for myself that not everything I write I have to put out publicly, but at least my energy is going and I'm always kind of in that space of creativity.
Yeah, yeah.
And I always have a backlog of content that I can pick from and choose and stuff. And I don't use strict calendars. I don't think that I wrote all these topics and I have to write them because I don't want to be robotic about it. I give myself creative space.
Yeah.
So because I know those things about myself, I try to put things in place to kind of control control my dark side.
The struggle of being consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can resonate with you there though, because see, nowadays, all right, so telling a story is one thing, telling your story is one thing, but then there's things like social media.
Yeah.
Like things like this cropping up, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy for people who are starting out in telling their own story to be pressured by the fact that they need to tell the story. So what kind of advice would you actually give to someone who wants to tell their story?
Right.
But they're kind of I don't really want to.
That's a tough one. It really is a tough one because this is why I believe in showing up, right? Because I don't think it's kind of easier sometimes. We think it's easier not to show up. It's hiding, feel safe,
Exactly.
Why should I put myself out there? But then I think showing up is one of the most beautiful things that we can do. I think it's one of the bravest things we can do. And I know the people that I most admire that have really touched me are the people that truly show up despite it all. So that's kind of the hope I have for myself. I want to show up as my most real, honest self, but to do that requires excruciating vulnerability. So that's one of my challenges. So when I write stuff online, a lot of it is kind of soul bearing. It's truly how I feel or truly what I think. And I don't kind of hold back either. It's quite personal a lot of the time. So that can be a struggle to keep showing up. But I also realize that's the price I paid to kind of feel alive and to make a real connection with people. You have to go through that vulnerable process. Yeah. So that's kind of one way. But then I also realize that not everybody is a soul bearer online, right? Some people want to have that distance, and I think that's perfectly fine too. You kind of have to do what's right for you. And so for me, what's right for me is that kind of that route, because I identify as being a writer and self-expressive, so that's why I care about that. But for the people who want to preserve their privacy, I think there's other ways to do that that's comfortable for you. So another thing that I kind of that I think answers your question is, I think you have to find something that feels good to you, even if it's scary. So I think I don't think the fear really goes away, but I do think you can find an approach that suits your personality. So I would say my suggestion would be maybe to not look at what you think you should be doing. So there's a lot of advice what you should be doing, right? You should be, doing videos. You should be doing a drip funnel. You should be doing all these things. And I think there's a lot. You should be on Twitter. You should be on Pinterest. And I think you should go with the things that kind of naturally interest you. The things that kind of excite you a little bit. And with a touch of being a little bit afraid is a good combination.
Cool. So it's totally okay to just tell your story, but you don't really need to be on whatever that people think that you should be. So you're saying that it's okay to do that, it's okay to share your story, but something that really resonates with you on a platform that resonates with you.
And I definitely think people should take the brave step of sharing their story. But something that always comes up in my workshops is that people don't feel like their story's worth telling, or they're embarrassed to even tell it because they feel like it's showing off.
Yeah.
Like mine was like, someone was like, oh, but I feel like if I do, I'm just kind of, just putting it out there. Nobody cares, right?
That's actually my next question. Like, like what kind of advice would you give people who just feels embarrassed and shy, or even they feel like, oh, I'm just showing off so much, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. I believe that stories are powerful in two ways. One, because they impact people and they get to learn from your journey. And I also think there's like a healing factor in being able to kind of get it out and express yourself. So I would kind of hope that people see that that's the way that they can contribute. And I also think it's the most instinctive way to share about what you're doing. But I think maybe as a kind of a perspective shift to get people comfortable, I'll see it as kind of sharing rather than I'm promoting myself or telling my story. Like maybe that sounds a little bit too intimidating. Like I'm telling the story of who I am, but maybe if you like rephrase it as like, what can I share with people? Like what's something that I would want people to know? What's something that people have asked me that I think would help people? So if you kind of like maybe take the pressure off by starting by sharing, and then you can kind of work up to revealing more and more of the story. So even with my own work, I have kind of the story of how I got into it, but I have a lot more personal stories that I'm kind of working up to. And I'm waiting, like I may not be ready now, but it's a gradual unfolding.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you don't need to share everything in one go.
Yeah.
It's usually it's something that is a process. So you start off with one.
Absolutely.
And then you have the audience that kind of like resonates with you, because that's also another thing, right? Not everyone will resonate with your story, so not everyone will find that your story kind of sticks with them.
Yeah.
It also depends on the circumstances of your audience as well.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does, and you don't have to be for everyone. In fact, you probably shouldn't be for everyone.
I like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it shouldn't be for everyone, right? Awesome, great. That's really great insights there. Okay, so Amanda, what's next for you? So now you're in Singapore. Are you planning to move again? Like, actually, we don't really know. I haven't asked you this. Why Singapore? Like, what was the reason you actually came here?
It was a coincidence, I guess, because I had a relative who was living here.
Okay.
And she was like, you would like Singapore, why don't you come over and visit? And I was like, okay. And I was working my job and I just hit a point where I achieved everything I wanted to in that company. And then I hit a point where I was getting bored. So I was like, and I was like saving my money because I was waiting for the day to leave, right? Cool. So I was like, this is my moment. So I just quit my job and I just moved. I'd never been to Singapore. I was like, I'm moving to Singapore.
Wow, okay, that's a huge thing.
And I thought if I liked it, I'll figure out a way to stay. And then as soon as I got here, I was like, the business scene is really cool. Yeah. People are really open. And I was just like, I'm just gonna figure it out. And I did.
Awesome. How long have you been here?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so you quit your job. You just kind of like, oh, that's it. I've hit that point where I need to leave, and then you just packed your bags and you came to Singapore.
Yeah.
That's a really like brave thing to do. Was that were there any kind of like resistance?
I think I was a little bit.
Okay.
There was a bit of like, oh, I got a great job and steady paycheck and all my family and all the practical things. Yeah. But then I also was like, well, I'm 27.
Okay.
I should, if I'm gonna do something random, I should probably do it now, like than when I'm like 50 and having a midlife crisis. So I was like, I'm just gonna do it, and I'm young enough to bounce back if it doesn't turn out right.
I like that because like lots of our audience are also probably in that position where they probably have a full-time job. Yeah. And they're like, they've reached the point where, they probably can't contribute anything more, or they are deciding whether or not they should take the step into starting a business or just doing something random like you said. Yeah,
I think the difference was it's not like I had financial support or anything like that. Like it was a calculated risk for me. But I saved my money for 3 years. Like I was working in London and I put away like 80% of my paycheck or something ridiculous, maybe like 70 or something. And I was like, I'm saving it for the day that I'm gonna do something crazy, because I knew that I wanted to buy my freedom somehow. Okay. I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. I thought maybe I'll travel the world with that money. But I was really careful of budgeting, and I reached enough where I was like, if I leave now, I can survive for like a year and a half on my savings.
Yeah.
So I had that and I was like, I'm gonna do it, now's the time. And so because I always had that in the back of my mind, when the time came, I had the freedom to explore. So I had enough savings to test things out.
Okay.
That's kind of how I saw it.
Okay, cool. So it wasn't something that you just kind of like, I'm just going to ditch my job and live without any money.
There was still an element of that, but like you can't do it on peanuts, right?
Yeah, I know.
Unless you got people like a spouse or parents, but I didn't have that. So I was like, no, I'm doing this myself. I gotta figure my way out, and I'm gonna get a job for 3 years, and that's how I'm gonna do it. And I think that's perfectly fine. Like if you're in a job and you have an idea, you plan.
Great.
Like even if it's not clear, and trust that you'll figure something out.
That's really cool, because you came to Singapore without knowing anybody.
Yeah.
Very much. Like, and then you started networking, and then, that's where you are right now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Right? Okay, so what's next for you? Like, what's the next step? This was back to that question.
So something cool that I just started doing was I had this idea, because I met all these great people in my workshops and they all have so much heart. I was like, what if I got them all in one room? So I started running these, I ran the first Businesses with Heart networking event. I called it a networking connection event. And the idea was to create conversations between these businesses that are kind of heart driven, create ways where people can have real conversations, real relationships. So I ran that first one, and it was really cool because I saw them connecting afterwards, and there's already collaborations happening. And someone said the reason why I think that happened is because everybody that went in with the idea of supporting and contributing, so that when they met, it was like, I kind of dig what you're doing, like, let me see how I can help. So there was that instant kind of chemistry or something. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Maybe I should do more of that stuff. So an idea that I'm looking at is when I come back from my travels, I'm thinking about creating a hybrid of what I currently offer. So at the moment, I help people with their kind of build their business and their brand by telling their story, and I write their content and everything. And I work with people over a period of a month or two to do that. But now I'm thinking, what if I did that in a group? So it's kind of like a mastermind, brand coaching, but then I'm also helping them with their business model, and then they're writing their content, but then getting them to vibe with each other, because I think that support is incredible. And I've seen it in my workshops when people are together and they're all on the same journey, they're like, yeah, okay, I'll read that blog, I can give you my feedback, or or give some feedback on their business ideas. So I wanted to kind of combine those two things and run like a mastermind coaching group. Wow. To help people tell their story and build their brand.
Cool.
Yeah.
In Singapore.
In Singapore.
Nice. No other troubles? Like not planning to move?
Not quite yet. I'm going back to England this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
For a while.
Just for a while. Like a short while. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, all the best with that. That's a really cool idea.
Thank you.
I like the fact that the support network. I think that's huge, especially people in business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to make it fun, and yeah.
Yeah. Great. Cool. Okay. So let me ask you, you're doing big things every day. So do you have anyone, or actually no, it's not a do you have anyone. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Who is your role model, or who do you kind of see as a big influence in your life and what you do every single day?
Maybe not every single day, but as like a reference point, I'm really a fan of Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you know her. She wrote the book Love Warrior.
Okay.
And she's a writer, but she's also an activist. Cool. And what I love about her is that she wrote this book, and she's all about being real as well. And she wrote this memoir about going through bulimia and having a divorce and what that reality was like. But it was so beautifully written, like it was actually like a piece of literature, but then it was also incredibly honest. And she's managed to create this whole movement around telling the truth. And I kind of love her for that. And like, she's so ballsy, and she has such a big heart. So she also created, when she had this movement, she created this organization called Together Rising. Yeah. And what they do is fundraise for organizations or events around the world that need support. So recently, when they had that issue in America with the migration issue, when the immigrants are separated, the parents were separated from their children, she partnered with like Brené Brown and Elizabeth Gilbert. They're two other influencers in the space, and they raised like $5 million within a few days, and they put all of that into, didn't get any money from it, they put it all into helping these lawyers reunite these kids and their families. And then she also helped refugees. So she's just, and that's why it's called Love Warrior. Like, she's just spreading love in the most amazing way. And I'm just like, I love you.
That's so awesome.
So I'm just like, yeah, she's someone that I'm like, she's awesome. And I look up to her.
Cool.
Yeah.
Will that be something that, this new project that you're working on, maybe, you can go into that direction, isn't it?
I've always incorporated social giving into my stuff. Like, I've helped raise money for orphanages and things. So I haven't done it for a while, and I do hope to bring it back.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Nice. That's awesome. Okay. Cool. A few questions. All right. We ask our guests this every single time.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, okay. What is your why, Amanda? Like, what is your drive to get up in the morning as a business person and as yourself?
I don't know if it's a conscious thing, actually. I just kind of live moment to moment. So,
Live one moment at a time.
I try to do that. Like, I think my own personal goal at the moment is just like a basic level of self-mastery, which is staying present.
Oh, cool.
Not getting lost in my baggage or my internal conversations. And then on a day-to-day is just spreading more light than darkness. Because I think as humans, we screwed up the world and we have the ability to heal it as well. But it takes us dealing with our own stuff, and it takes us consciously trying to spread love.
Okay.
And that's what I try to do, is constantly looking at how I'm treating people, if I'm really for other people, catching my own kind of ego and stuff like that. So just on the basic level, I'd say that's it.
Okay, so you're saying that people screw up. I mean, that's normal, that's life.
Yeah.
But the more you screw up and the more you give to people, the more you spread love, that just makes, the fact that we screwed up and then getting back up again a little bit more easier. Is that what you mean? Or?
Yeah, I guess. So one of the other kind of big influences on me is a spiritual teacher called Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of him, but he talks about how one of the biggest problems with humanity and the origin of suffering is our egos.
Yeah.
And I completely believe that. I believe that ego is what creates greed. It's what's damaging the planet. It's how we just get caught up in our own drama and stuff. And so I really think that to make a positive influence in the world, we all have an ego, and it's about, and I think that's kind of like, I kind of call it our dark side. I think everybody has a dark side, the side that can be jealous, or the side that gets petty, or the side, I think self-awareness, like realizing when we have those moments and when our ego is coming in and turning it into something, letting go of it so that we can really bring something that's positive into the world. Like, that's kind of what I mean.
Very cool. I mean, I'm gonna pause that. I'm totally gonna I'm gonna quote you later. Eckhart Tolle? How do you spell?
E-C-K.
Yeah. Actually, he has a couple of books, right?
Yeah.
E-C-K-H-A-R-T.
Yeah. When I first read his book, like when I first got it in my hand, I didn't get it. Like, it was like over my head.
Okay.
But I had to wait for the right moment. And as soon as I read it the next time, it like clicked. I was like, oh my God, I get it. I get what he's talking about.
That's so cool, yeah.
And yeah, so that it's like, I guess that's like a different level. It's like spiritual self-mastery, or just letting go of the ego. And I'm all about that. Like, I think what comes first for me is spiritual clarity, just letting go of the ego. And I think if I'm clear about that, everything else will affect my business, it will affect my day-to-day stuff, it will affect how I show up in the world.
Yeah. So it just really comes down to being aware, like self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
That's That's really cool. Awesome. Cool. All right. Next question. What's something that you're super proud of? Hang on. That's the first part of the question.
Okay.
What's something you're super proud of that a lot of people or most people do not know?
Jeez. I really don't know. Super proud of that most people don't know.
Maybe. I'm just going to interrupt your
Yeah.
thoughts. I mean, you did mention there's a couple of, backlogs of stories that you haven't really kind of shared with the world. Maybe something that you're super proud of that people don't know.
I think I'm a show off. So everything I'm proud of, I'm like, hey guys, look what I've done. Like I'm not that modest, to be honest. That's terrible now that I acknowledge that. Like I don't think I have anything.
That's self-awareness.
Yeah. I mean, like I try to do good things and not feel the need to put it on social media or make a big thing out of it or tell people. And I think maybe it's just like maybe it's just my values. Like I feel really strongly about the integrity of my values.
Okay. And
just a commitment to that and always trying to work on myself and be a good person.
Yeah. That's like that's the top of your values, just being a good person and just really work on doing things.
Yeah, and trying to be for other people. Like I really try and put my ego out of the way and genuinely see how I can support people.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really just giving back with heart. I mean, with whatever that we've just spoken about.
Yeah.
Just having the heart for others.
Yeah. I really try.
That's something you should be proud of. Not everyone has that, but that's really awesome. All right. Amanda, what is your most humbling experience so far?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if this is one, if it's the most humbling, but it was just a thing that I remembered. I remember when I think I was about 10, I went to the Philippines and there was a family out there and they had a little shop and I was in one of these like villages and the little girl was like, come, let me show you my house. And she was like, took me by the hand and she walked me to this little building and I thought it was her playhouse. Like I was like, I don't want to see your playhouse, I don't have the time. She's like, come and see my house. And then I was like, okay, fine. And I went and it was this tiny little it was tiny. It was like a little 6 foot by 6 foot room with one mattress. Okay. It was a home where 5 of them slept on that mattress. They lived in that house. And I thought it was a playhouse because I was so used to certain luxuries. Yeah. And I was like, this is their life. Like that's their house. And I was just like, how do they, like these kids don't have a place to study. They don't have a running water. They don't have a shower. And I was like, oh my God, like us Westerners, us developed country people really do have first world problems, And I was like, it's not, we always complain about money and things like that, but it's so relative. And most of us who have education, who have access to the internet, we're like the top percentage of the world. Like we're loaded compared to the rest of the world. Yeah. And I think it's so easy to lose that perspective. And I still do, like when some vanity kicks in, I think about clothes or how I look or something. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I get some perspective. So that was really humbling. Yeah. There's a few incidences like that.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Sort of like, it just reminds us of what we have, like how lucky we are to even live in this part of the world, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. Great. That's awesome. Cool. Okay. If it was your last day on Earth today.
Right.
If it was.
Right.
What would be your three truths or lessons that you will share to others?
I don't know. I would say telling the truth is a healing process.
Okay.
I would say vulnerability is the price we pay for connection.
Mm-hmm.
And to dare to be vulnerable.
Okay.
Because connection is what we're all here for.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Those are three.
I think so, yeah.
That's awesome, because I want to ask you something about vulnerability.
Okay.
This is like not a typical question, but how do you deal with like haters? Like, do you have people going against your stories so far? Or
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I think probably a few eye rolls here and there. You know, like I think I could easily be too much for people. Like I realize that I am like a too much person.
Okay.
Like I'm just like a bit ridiculous, you know. I'm just like a little bit eccentric, and I say what I believe, and I'm all about like hard and all these things. And I think for some people, it's just like, geez, you know, like.
Okay.
There's like too much, but I think, but that's part of my philosophy as well, like dare to be too much.
Yeah. Okay.
And
cool.
And it doesn't really matter. Like who cares? You know, like who cares? Don't take it so seriously.
Okay. And who cares what others think?
Yeah, well? who cares like what other people think, and don't take it, you know, it doesn't have to be such a big deal. Like I think we create such a big thing out of these things, and just do your thing and find your people that love you and care about you and care about your well-being. Those are the people that matter. The people that are trying to take you down, like why waste energy on that?
Awesome. Be vulnerable. I think dare to be vulnerable. It's really cool. What is your definition of legacy, Amanda?
Leaving the planet a better place than you found it.
Wow. Okay. So can you elaborate on that? Like in what sense does that mean to you?
I guess it's like, I don't think legacy has to be a big thing, like create a business at last or like have some children that go on to be the next Messiah. I don't think it's like that. I think it's just like make use out of your time here. Be awake, you know, take risks. Don't be afraid to kind of use your heart and try to do things to improve the world in whatever way that could be for you. It could be sharing your art. It could be, you know, helping someone get healthy. It could be listening to someone's problems, but do something, like tap into what's going on and don't be afraid to do that, because that helps. It matters. Every single person's life matters. We're all here because we exist and we're shaping the world. Like that matters. Yeah. And do something about it.
Yeah. So it's right now. The legacy is just the present moment, and that's super important.
And and contributing through that.
Cool. Great. Awesome.
Cool.
Last little bit.
Okay. I keep thinking it's the last one.
That's the coolest bit, actually. Okay. Do you listen to? So you, of course, you listen to music. You know, we talked about this earlier. You listen to some sort of music on your phone, like on a day-to-day basis right now as well?
No.
No? Okay, cool.
It's kind of, no.
No? Okay. Because we have this question where we call it 5 seconds of fun.
Right.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you something, and you only have 5 seconds to answer it.
Okay.
And we're gonna be talking about music, so maybe you can just tune in a little
bit.
Geez.
Oh geez. Okay, yeah.
All right, so 5 seconds of fun. You have 5 seconds to answer your most favorite song. What is your favorite line from that song?
Oh geez.
Oh man. Okay.
I can't think of a favorite. I can only think of something influence.
Okay.
Yeah. So what came into my head when you said that was "Spy in the House of Love" by The Doors, which is really, I don't listen to Doors anymore. I used to years ago.
Okay.
But that's so it's called "Spy in the House of Love," and I was wondering what that lyric meant, right? I was like, spy in the house of love, right? It's a bit of poetry. So I was like, so it's based off of a book by Nis Nin.
Yeah.
So then I read that book. And so that song stayed with me because it had this chain reaction in my life.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the song is called Spy in the House of Love.
Yeah.
Nice. things, and it's literally like a chain reaction of your life.
Yeah, totally.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. So before we end this, perhaps we can share a little bit about how we can support you. How do people find you?
Okay.
Maybe you can just share with us a little bit about your business website or something, your Facebook or Instagram.
Yes, with pleasure. So my website is amandabloom.com.
It's a really cool website.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
So nicely done.
And my last name is spelled BLUM,
Okay.
not like the flower. And then my Instagram is Amanda Goes Solo.
Okay.
So those are the two main things I'm playing with at the moment.
Great. That's it. Thank you so
Cool.
much for being here.
With pleasure.
Had so much fun, and
It was fun. It was fun answering your questions.
Thank you so much.